Welcome, everybody, to our Difficult Conversation series. My name is Jose Barzola, president at the Conflict Resolution Alliance, a local nonprofit that develops and supports peace builders in Hawaii. The Difficult Conversation series are 6 interactive virtual workshops that will assist you to be ready to have difficult conversations in your professional and personal lives. Today, session 6 is Why Can't We All Get Along? The Art of Creative Conflict with Dr. Loretta Chen. Thank you for joining us today to share insights and case studies from the world of a prolific ad agency and its ability to thrive in spite of cultural, personal, and creative conflict. What are some key lessons that we can gain from mastering creative conflict? How do we turn differences?
Carol Ann Gordon.
Join the meeting.
How can design thinking aid in our espousal of creative conflict? We will enable participants to work on case studies as well as explore creative collaboration in this engaging interactive session. Singaporean Dr. Loretta Chen is an award-winning media veteran, professor, and author. Her latest book, Inspiring Women of Hawaii, is available at Costco, Target, and good bookstores, with all proceeds going to Women of Waianae Scholarship Fund. She was a nominated member of parliament and voted one of Asia's most inspiring women for her work in education, arts, and advocacy. And you can definitely learn more about her at www.drlorettachen.com. And to get us started, I'm going to turn it over to our good friend today, Dr. Chen.
Hey everybody, aloha, hi. It's good to see so many of you. And I know in this world, it's not just about having difficult conversations, but how do you have conversations with yourself when everyone is muted? So that's kind of difficult. But a warm welcome. Thank you all for sharing your afternoon and your lunch break with me. So before I get officially started, if you notice me looking down on my feet, it's not because I'm being disrespectful. It's because I have little kittens in my house and they love to run under my chair. And the last thing I want to do is run over my kittens when I'm rolling back in my seat. So just a quick little warm-up activity. What I'd like you to do is fairly simple because all our mics are muted. But I need you to do one of two things, okay? So I'm going to say a little something. So it could be, how many of you have had breakfast today, for example, okay? So how many of you have had breakfast today? And if it is a yes, you have had breakfast today, you're going to lean really close into the camera like that, okay? Make sure we can see every pore, every wrinkle. And if it's a no, you're going to try and get out of the camera, okay? So that's a no. You disappear. And if it's a yes, we want to see you. Okay? By thumbs up, show me we got that. Yeah? We got that thumbs up. You guys are an awesome audience. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm going to move my chair. All right? And so I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So remember, if it's a yes, want to see all your pores and wrinkles. If it's a no, we get out. Okay. So, question. How many of us here so I'll say blow in, blow. So if the wind blows to the direction, if it's a yes, you move to the camera, no, go out. Okay, so blow in, blow. The wind blows to people who are barefoot. If you're barefoot, if it's a yes, you're gonna come right up close. Isn't it great? It was one of the best conferences ever. We are all barefoot. That's wonderful. That's what I love about Zoom, I have to say. Blow in, blows. Wind blows to people who have had lunch. Oh, we got some hungry people, and we've also got some people with food coma, so I'll do my best to entertain and stay engaged. Next question, blow in, blows. Wind blows to people who are mediators or who have mediated or from the mediating field or so many mediators. Wow, lots of peace builders here. Thank you. Okay, blow in, blow. Wind blows to people who are litigators. Litigators. Oh, there. Those are the people making the big bucks right there. We're going to come ask you for a donation from Manoa Valley Theater. Just saying. Blow, wind, blow. Wind blows to people who are academics or in academia or in the teaching profession, in the position of teaching people, nurturing. All right. Okay. Blow, wind, blows. The wind blows to people who have worked in advertising agencies or creative agencies before. Geez, there's some people I really have to impress. Barbara, Tina, Mimi. Geez, I got some big guns here. Got impressed. And final question, wind blows to people who are keen to get this party started. We're keen to get this started. Yay! Thank you all. You're just such a great sport. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to start screen sharing. It's so strange to not hear feedback, right? It's like, but you know, that's where we are now with Zoom. Okay, so we're going to play from start. So why can we all get along? The art of creative conflict. So thank you, Jose, for inviting me and having me talk to myself. But I know you're all out there, so I'll be as engaging as I can. So Jose has already done a wonderful introduction to me, so thank you. If you can't tell from my accent, I'm really not from here. I'm from Singapore, so I can also talk like that in my Singaporean pidgin. So I do a lot of speaking engagements, and as Jose said, I've written some books, and I'll do a quick little plug here. Please support Inspiring Women of Hawaii, because like Jose says, every cent goes towards the Women of Waianae Scholarship Fund. There it is. But in my previous incarnation, I did a lot of work for the community as a theater director, and that was how I cut my teeth being a person in leadership as well as in creativity. And that actually catapulted me. So I did a lot of theater productions. As you can see, the scale of the productions that I used to do there. And that kind of catapulted me into my next career as an executive creative director of one of the biggest agencies in Asia called the Activation Group. So these are some of our clients that you're probably familiar with: Samsung, Adidas, DFS, Louis Vuitton. So these are just some images from my work with Samsung when I ran the campaign in the Middle East, in Korea, and Singapore. This is me running the Nike shows. This is the concept and creative for Louis Vuitton, because I was the CD for Louis Vuitton and their campaigns. And I also produced the BNP Paribas Women's Tennis Association finals, and we brought Serena Williams, Maria Sharapova, and all the tennis greats to Asia. And there's the reason why I'm sharing all this, because there'll be a couple of pop quizzes, and you just show me by show of hands. Okay, just tell me what you think by show of hands. Okay, so as you can tell in the work that we do, there is a lot of ego. The reason why I took the time to put together all those photos is because if there's anything linking all of that together, it's because I have to work with a lot of egos. A lot of people who are very good in what they do, who believe very much in what they do, whether it's art or sport or electronics or business. They're incredibly successful. So I deal with a lot of big egos. And I also deal with a lot of people who have very big egos, but they're still able to help me put these productions together. So the ego is the enabler, but it can also be the enemy. And in the work that I do, there is a lot of creative tension. CF, cross-reference, the fact that I work with a lot of egos. These are people who are very visionary, very good in what they do. And you put 3, 4, 10, 20 of us in a room, you can imagine it's going to be like lots of tension. But the reason why we continually have successes is what we do. I mean, there are some failures too, don't get me wrong. But the reason why we continually do what we do is because we enjoy that sense of creative tension. And this is a quote that I like from Peter Senge, where he says that the gap between vision and current reality is also a source of energy. If you can't tell, I'm super energetic, right? It's all my creative energy. And if there were no gap, there would be no need for any action to move towards the vision. And so we call this gap a creative tension. So what we all have to do when we run creative agencies or work with lots of talent, people who are at the helm, at the top of what they do, we always need to remind ourselves to leave our ego, our judgment, and today in Zoom pandemic era, we can also leave our shoes. And I love being in Hawaii because pandemic or no pandemic, we leave our shoes at the door anyway. But the fact is, and all of you know, and I know I'm preaching to the converted, I have a lot of academics, litigators, and mediators here, that it's not easy to do, and you know that. And so you are the expert. So I would just wanted to give a different perspective, which is slightly different from just mediation or litigation or in academia. So just give a creative perspective. But first, a poll. And because we're all muted, if you don't mind, if you could just show me by show of hands, if you agree to the first, because I'm going to show you a series of pictures. In the first, I'll show you I'll show you two photos, and then I'll ask you, do you see this or do you see that? And if you see the first, you put your hand up. If you see the second, you put your hand up. Same thing with the next poll. I'll read out two quotes, and then I'll ask you, which one are you more for? Okay? Yeah. So the first. How many of you here see a duck? How many of you here see a bunny? How many of you here see both? All right, okay. Thanks, Barbara. You see both. Yay, okay. All right. So some of you are still like, what is she talking about? All right, okay. Next little question. Oh, but this is a bit of a nerdy one. For those of you, for those of you who see both, you get this. For those of you who see one or the other, maybe it's taking a while. So I'll let that far side humor sink in for a little bit, because it's all a matter of perspective. So two warring groups, there can be no peace until they renounce their rabbit god and they accept our duck god. Okay, nerdy humor. Okay, end of nerdy humor. Okay, thank you, Barbara. You're such a wonderful audience. Okay, end of nerdy humor. Next slide, same thing. I'm going to read out two quotes, and then I'll ask you to raise your hands. Are you more in favor of quote 1 or quote 2? And you could be undecided. That's okay, right? But you don't have to agree with it 100%, but do you feel more for quote 1 or for quote 2? Okay, let's try that again. Okay. So here's another poll. Which sentence do you agree with more? Sentence goes this way. Once upon a time, people lived in societies that embraced values and tradition, where people took personal responsibility, worked hard, enjoyed the fruits of their labor, and through charity, helped those in need. Marriage, family, faith, honor, loyalty, sanctity, and respect for authority and the rule of law brought about a free and fair society. Then liberals came along and destroyed everything in the name of progress and utopian social engineering. That's quote number 1. Quote number 2. Once upon a time, people lived in societies that were unequal and oppressive, where the rich got richer and the poor got exploited. Chattel slavery, child labor, economic inequality, racism, sexism, discriminations of all types abounded until the liberal traditions of fairness, justice, care, and equality brought about a free and fair society. And now, conservatives want to turn back the clock in the name of greed and God. All right, let's take a quick poll. How many of you here are more in favor of quote 1? Okay. How many of you here are more in favor of quote 2? Okay. All right. And again, what we see is that every time I take this poll, and to be quite fair, geographically, it makes a difference. I think in Hawaii, we know where we lean. But the point is there's always going to be a mixed bag, right? And in order to understand why, I wish to do a very, very, very brief history lesson. I'll try to keep it to like a 2-minute history lesson because we only have 90 minutes for this, and I want to leave 30 minutes for talk story, 30 minutes for you to explore, and 30 minutes for your talk story. So here's a very brief history lesson. Why do we have all these differences? Why can we all just get along? And again, before I give you my very brief history lesson, I want you to answer this question in your head because you're all muted. Just answer this question in your head, okay? We always say, oh, birds fly, fish swim. What do humans do? I'm going to ask that question again. Just answer it in your head. If birds fly and fish swim, what do humans do? Okay. History lesson begins. Well, and as we all know, we all evolved from apes, and from being apes, we started becoming hunter-gatherers, right? And then as hunter-gatherers, we started developing a process now know it's called farming. And with farming, we now, think about property. That was the rise of private property rights. There is us and them, right? This is my property, not yours. Keep out. No, this is mine. I'll take care of my friends. I'll take care of my family because this is my property. End of history lesson. But basically what history has taught us is human beings are a social species. The reason why we can't sometimes all get along is because we are tribal by nature. And you all know this already, and there's a point to me bringing all this up. That belonging, the capacity and need for empathy, for compassion, and for communication, it is indeed part of our DNA. And we are the most evolved of all species on Earth, right? We're the most intelligent, we're the most creative. But having said that, we also have a dark side, right? That very side that keeps us safe and secure and with a sense of belonging can also make us belligerent and brutal because of our sense of belonging. I mean, my mother is the kindest, most gentle person, but if any one of you even try to attack me or pull out a little hair, my mother be like, argh, she'll turn into a tiger mom right away, right? Because Homo sapiens are indeed creative and loving, but we can also be destructive and hostile. And we all know this. I think a Bedouin a quote best encapsulates this, right? And sometimes we have changing factions, right? We have changing tribes. And the quote goes like this: I against my brother or sister. I and my brother against our cousins. I, my brother, and our cousin against the neighbors. And all of us against the foreigner. Again, it brings home the fact that while we're all tribal, we can also have shifting tribes because we're so smart and we cultivate different alliances. We're constantly shifting. We're shifting tribes. And that's why it can be kind of hard to get along. We get along and then we dis-get along, right? All right. So now if I asked you, after we've had that very insightful history lesson about how we evolved from apes to becoming hunter-gatherers, to becoming farmers, to owning land and property. Now if I asked you again, birds fly, fish swim, humans, and unfortunately we're muted, and here's the answer. Whether or not you agree with it is not the point, but this is the answer from Dave Logan, John King, and Haley Fisher-Wright, that birds fly, fish swim or school, and people, humans, we tribe. It's what we do. We find our tribe. We try. So, and I think it's probably no coincidence that Jose sort of planned my session a week before the elections. So I don't know if there's more pressure or less pressure, but so let's just think for a second. And since we tribe so much, how can we deactivate tribalism, right? So here are some ideas that are not new, that you already know. So I'm going to spend about 3 minutes talking about the ideas you already know, okay? So you already know. Self-awareness can help with taking down some of that tribalism. How? Right, we now know with CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, we get more of understanding of our thoughts, how our thoughts and our feelings come together, and thoughts and feelings affect our actions, right? So all of this come together. So we now have an understanding of CBT. Okay. We also now have an understanding of the amygdala, like what happens in our brain, what happens in our minds, right? We have fight or flight. And in fact, now we're even saying we don't just have fight or flight responses. We have fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? Where we just feel this need to constantly be pleasing people, right? So instead of just fight or flight, we fight, flight, freeze, or we constantly have to feel like a people pleaser. So again, research and studies always tells us, there are all these ways to help us de-escalate tribalism. And then for those of you who are communicators, you know that communication is a two-way process. It's how we exchange symbols, and it's how we try and share understanding. But it also tells us that communication always grows out of an imperfect context. That is why we're sharing, right? So that's another model to look into how to de-escalate tribalism, right? The self-awareness, the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. We understand more about communication skills. And then there are other perspectives, right? There are perspectives like in Taoism. If you look at the symbol of the Tao, it is not a half and half. It's not like left and right or black and white, but it is fluid, right? It understands that conflict is part of our being, right? We live in this liminal space. It's seemingly dualistic, but it's not, right? It's really interconnected, and sometimes it's yucky, it's mushy, it all sort of interpolates. It's not just a straight bifurcation. So the Chinese seem to embrace this sort of like nebulous, yucky concept of yin and yang, and that we need each other, right? In this sort of liminal space. And then artists sort of take it and run. And then in Indian aesthetics, there's this concept of rasa. And rasa literally means juice or essence, right? Indian art forms understand that there are some things that we feel or taste that we can't put an exact label to it, but it just gives us that feeling, that yucky, juicy, yummy feeling of like umami or rasa, right? We can't always pin it, but it's just sort of there. Creative conflict. And then the Japanese have their own concept too, right? That things can be kind of nebulous. There's perfection and imperfection and imperfection and perfection. And then they embrace it all in this concept called the wabi-sabi, that there's beauty in uncertainty. You don't always need things to be perfectly labeled and perfectly clean and perfectly perfect for it to be sort of beautiful, right? It's derived from all the yuckiness from the Buddhist teachings of impermanence and suffering and emptiness. If you notice, all these three have those Asian leanings, right? That's asymmetrical. It sort of exists in this liminal space of nebulousness, and it's okay. And that's where the creative conflict and tension lies, and we're okay with that. And now this is the part that really takes me to the advertising part. What has all this got to do? So those are all different ways of understanding creative conflict. You see it in CBT, you see it in Asian traditions, but you also begin to really see it in Ferdinand de Saussure. I mean, many of you here are very learned, and you know that he was the father of modern linguistics. What's this all got to do with advertising? I know a couple of you like Tanner, that's from advertising. You probably know this already. It has everything to do with making meaning. Because we know that words are not just words. We know that symbols are not just symbols. They create meaning. And again, I'm going to give you a 1-minute class. Okay, so just hands up. How many? Okay, can you see my cursor? Can you see my cursor? You're able to see? Okay. How many of you can see this? You understand what this means? Hands up. Yep, everyone's nodding. We get it. That's hello. We get it. How many of you understand this? This makes sense to you? Yeah, just show me by nodding. Yep, we get this. We get this. How many of you understand this? Like it makes sense to you. You see this and you get it. Hola. Yeah, Barbara's like, hola. Yep, got it. Now, how many of you understand this? Oh, I see those faces. This is exactly the point. We like to think that language unifies, and we like to think that these are all universal symbols, but they're only universal if you know how to read the signs. We know how to read this. We know how to read this. I know how to read this. But some of you don't. But most of us don't know how to read this. This tells us that signs are not universal. This is exactly what Ferdinand de Saussure was saying. The reason why we could all read this was because the sign, the signifier, and the signified are unified. This is a signifier. These little alphabets strung together make sense to us because we're schooled in English. So this HELLO, the signifier makes sense to us. The signified is, oh, someone is saying hello. So the sign, this becomes a complete sign because we can read it. It's a sign to us. This we cannot read. So if anything, it is a sign that we don't know how to read a sign. So this person could be trying to frantically say, hello, 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 but we don't get it. We either don't get it or we misread it. That was Ferdinand de Saussure's point, that if we understand how signs work, we understand the meaning. We understand this is a tree because the signifier, T-R-E-E, recalls the image of the tree in our head. So this makes sense to us. It's a complete sign. We see the M and we know it's McDonald's. Nothing in that M tells us McDonald's, but we know because of the powers of advertising. We now know there was a time when McDonald's had to spell it all out, and we know it's McDonald's. Now they're so powerful in the advertising, they just show this and I know McDonald's. Just as the tick, I know we're all muted, but just tell me, what does the tick stand for? I can read from your lips. What does the tick stand for? Or the swoosh. What does the swoosh stand for? That's right, Nike, right? Many of you got it. We know the swoosh to the tick. You don't even need to see it, but you see the swoosh to the tick, you know it's Nike. Sign, signifier, signify, it's united, we get it. That's how meaning is made. How is it made? It's made by advertisers. It's made by marketeers. I'm using now a marketing concept, okay? How did we make the golden arches and the swoosh stick in your head? It's because we created meaning in that by repetitiveness and drilling that meaning into you. So let's park that concept for a while. And that is why I thought it'd be interesting for us to think about what is design thinking. Design thinking is not new. And it is something that we as creatives use a lot. And it is how we are able to create without getting into a fight. And that is because design thinking is an enlightened trial and error wherein one observes the world, we identify patterns of behavior, we generate ideas, we get feedback, we repeat the process, and we keep on refining. Designers, creators, we understand the power of the sign, signifier, signify. We know how to create unities of meaning, but we also know that sometimes if it doesn't work. And so we're always happy to go back to the drawing block. We're able to leave the ego at the door. So this can be quite confusing for many who haven't been in the creative business, but some of you are nodding because you know what I'm going for. Let me give you a really good example, Coca-Cola, okay? So let me give an example of design thinking gone wrong. It's always easier to show you when it's gone wrong, and then I'll show you what goes right, okay? Design thinking gone wrong. In an attempt to boost sales and compete with its biggest rival, Pepsi, Coca-Cola tweaked its classic formula. Because remember, there was a Pepsi taste challenge, and many people actually picked Pepsi because it's sweeter. So Coca-Cola was like, I don't want to lose out to Pepsi. So what they did was they came up with new Coke in 1985. Some of us know, right? Some of us tasted 1985. Yeah, okay. Some of us did and some of us didn't. So in 1985, they came up with new Coke. Is it still around? No, it flopped. Why? See, Coca-Cola had done this blind taste test, right? And everyone preferred the sweeter version. So they relied on the data and the polling, and they went out and created a sweeter version. And it tanked. It tanked. So despite a massive research publicity effort, New Coke failed terribly within 3 months. What was wrong? We realized that the taste test wasn't enough, that relying on the polls wasn't enough, because consumers sometimes made decisions not just on taste or tactile things per se. They also made purchases based on meaning, habit, nostalgia, which the poll could not capture, because it was literally a test that says, try A and try B, blind test, which one you like. So the person says, oh, I like this one because it's sweeter. But what they really preferred was Coke, because when they got that can of Coke or the bottle of Coke, it was a nostalgia, it was a loyalty, it was a warmth, it was all those things that Coke then didn't understand design thinking, didn't think about it. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make was that they did not understand the consumer. They didn't understand the symbolism of Coca-Cola. They only went with hard fact and data. Okay, now you can see where I'm drawing with the analogy, right? Because Coca-Cola is more than a drink. It's symbolic of something. So what we begin to realize is that oftentimes we may make a mistake if we only relied on quote unquote polls, election time, and data, right? Because there's something else. There's something else at stake, and we're trying to get to that something else. What is that? And you're going to have to practice it in a while. So some examples of successful design thinking. We'll give you success stories. Now you see what didn't work. Let's look at what worked. The ATM. The ATM is an example of an incredibly successful design. Now, if I had asked you, Barbara, say 50 years ago, how can I go to the bank to withdraw money? Or how can I make the withdrawal of money a lot faster? You'll say, oh, have more banks, have more tellers. But somebody said, let's design the ATM. You'd never seen that before. But some people got together and said, we got to do this. Not just about having bigger banks or more tellers. It's about making this dispensing machine. And it would sound completely crazy to people, a machine that dispenses money. But because the designers look at circumstances, they look at motivation, and they looked at desired outcomes. They didn't just ask the consumer what they want. They looked at their behavior, their circumstances, their motivation, and the desired outcome. Give you another example. Netflix successfully disrupted the movie industry. I mean, Blockbuster is gone because of design thinking. Airbnb has disrupted the hotel industry. I mean, granted, the pandemic has done a better job, but Airbnb disrupted the hotel industry. Uber disrupted the taxi industry. Again, the point I'm trying to make is what Airbnb, Uber, and Netflix did was that they didn't just go out to ask you what you want. They went out to observe what you didn't have. They understood your pain points. In short, in designer language, we understand the job that needs to be done. We're not asking you what you want. We observe you and we recognize what needs to be done. We draw conclusions based on observing you, what has to be done to disrupt these services. So basically, and one of the biggest problems that a lot of institutions do is they always rely on data by going back to ask people what they think, what they feel. But when you ask people what they think, what they feel, you're just asking them based on what they know. And what has Steve Jobs told us? Steve Jobs said, people don't know what they want until you show them. And that was what Henry Ford said 100 years ago. If I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So how does this all come together with what we're talking about? How do we all get along? It is to really begin to use some of the tools of design thinking to begin to identify, cut the clutter and the noise, to begin to identify the problems that matter. Again, I know as mediators and litigators, you do that already, but I'm just giving another tool, right? Which I'm sure you already use, you just use a different metaphor. The design thinking helps to identify the problems that matter and move through systematically to deliver solutions for the users. We're always thinking of what is unmet, what is unsaid, what is desired but unarticulated. So that is the core of design thinking. We think about the customer all the time. So whether it is the person I'm mediating in front of me or my student who is in front of me, you know, I try to always use my design thinking to think, how can I make my students' experience in class better? How can I make this underserved woman who is in my nonprofit, how can I serve her better? Because if I asked her, she would say, I don't know what I want, I just want help. But I need to observe her, I need to understand, I need to explore, because I need to use a user-centric approach. This also means I need to really begin to uncover meaningful insights, insights that sometimes people don't tell me because they don't know. How do we do that? We need to start exploring. We need to start exploring by observing, by looking, we can also start by testing. We create new value propositions. It's like next summer, I'm creating a new class for Jose. We want to create new propositions for peace building in a 21st post-pandemic world. We're always trying to test new things. And we constantly try again and again and again, which also means we fail fast, we fail early, we try again and again and again. We never think for once that we're ever good enough, and we keep trying. So we strive for excellence, never perfection. That is the art of a good design thinker. And if it fails, we pivot. I know we hate that word now because we're hearing it so much, but we pivot. We say, okay, that was horrible. Let's pivot. Let's see how we can do that again. So we also start thinking about blue ocean strategies. And about 3 minutes, you're going to do this yourself. We think about blue ocean strategies. So we always think about the consumer, what is unsaid, unmet, unarticulated. And then we try and think how we think blue ocean. We try and think about differentiation. We try and think about how we can make things different. We try and think how we can create and capture uncontested spaces, spaces where there's no competition. And we always believe that boundaries are not set for us as design thinkers and makers. Boundaries are there for us to break them. We're very good at that. And so this is, again, a really short presentation, which it's close to 25 years of my life's work. I know some of you are a lot more senior than me, and I respect you, but I've been in design and creative for 25 years and have a lot to learn from all of you. But this is basically the gist of what we do continuously as artists and designers. We build, we deconstruct, and we build again, and we build back better. And if it's no good, we go back again and we try again. So it's constantly iterative and going back and forth. We're going to lead into your little activity now. So in the last 35 minutes, we looked into what makes us human. We say fish swim, birds fly, and humans try. Humans need to belong. We also say that in order to be able to communicate better or bring people better, we need to look into what is the job to be done. How can I unite these group of consumers if they're so different? I look into what is the common denominator. What is the job to be done for this group? And then I really think about the customer. What does the customer want? They're not telling me, but what will they say if they could tell me? And we do that by uncovering meaningful insights, by observing them, observing the unsaid. And then we begin to ideate, we iterate, and we create blue ocean. Again, these seems very conceptual. Rainbow Connection is for later. If we have more time, we'll go there. So now it's your turn to try. You will be broken up into groups, and I know Jose is now creating your breakout groups, and you'll be randomly assigned into different breakout groups. So what will happen is, I know this is a really short time, and I've just breezed through a lot of these concepts, but you're going to watch a 13-minute video, okay, 13-minute video. And you will, in your group, look at one consumer, because the video has about 5 different consumers. But each of you will be assigned a different consumer to look at. Okay, you look at everything, but then you focus on that one consumer. Okay, and so then what will happen is, after you watch this little clip, you will discuss as a group about your customer. In our case, we say the informer, because we'll pretend as if you got a slice of their life, you went into their lives and you're observing them. You're watching how they act, watching how they behave, right? And I want you to develop a new value proposition for the informer. That means I want you, after you watch this 13-minute film, to think about how you can create a better tea drinking experience for them. I don't need you all to be designers. I don't need you all to be artists. I don't need you all to be tea connoisseurs. It's just big ideas. You know that this is a community of tea drinkers. All I want you to do is to focus on one of the consumers. I'll go into your rooms and tell you who you should focus at. Do you focus on whether it's Graysner, whether it's the Marcelin family, or whether it's Suncho, or whether it's Anna Swai? You're going to look into their lives. And then as a group, you're going to decide, okay, how can we better that tea drinking experience? And I leave it up to you. You can think about making the tea experience better, from the packaging to the tea bag to the teapot, and already saying too much. But that's my point. Watch how they drink their tea, and I want you to tell me how they can make the tea experience better. Okay, so go big, go for big ideas. It doesn't have to be a huge communications plan. And then I want you to share your findings when you are back in the main room. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that again. So you will watch a short documentary, and then I'll come into your rooms and tell you which groups you're looking at, which customer you look at, and then you'll discuss. Okay, sounds like a plan? Yeah. Does that sound like a plan? Okay, thank you, Mimi. Thank you. Okay, great. So this is what we'll do. Just one little note, what to look out for when you're looking at your customers. Obviously, you're going to listen to what they say, but you're also going to look out for contradictions. Things that kind of stand out for you, like, oh, that's kind of strange. Why didn't they do that, right? Don't ignore the, why didn't they do that? Listen out for that. Start looking at what do they value. And sometimes it's not spoken. Observe. Think about the things that prompt their behavior. Why do they act the way they act? Begin to look at how they use certain props and things. How can we work around those adaptations? Are there any interesting behaviors? Look at their body language. So this is all not new to all of us, but I'm now asking you to look at it up close and personal with your teammates. Okay. So I'm going to play the video now. What I suggest is, because of how we've worked it, because Jose needs to do the breakout rooms later, what I ask is for you to just watch the entire film. And later on, when you're in your groups, you can work as a group, because you have imperfect information. Some of you will remember more and some of you will remember less about the consumer, but you pull together all your findings as a group and present as a group. Okay, so for now, for 13 minutes, we're just going to watch this, and then we will put you in your breakout groups and you will discuss on a specific consumer. Okay, all right, thank you.
For decades and decades and decades, England was the only place in the world where you could have such a drink in such a way. So people still do think of England and English tea. People assume that tea is drunk in such a way in England that it must be from England.
With the water, freshly boiled, that I let it through a bit to get the color. When I first came to England, I was drinking black tea. People were presuming that everybody drinks white tea, so I was just too shy to say, oh, actually I don't. So I started to drink tea with milk. In Poland, only breastfeeding mothers drink milk tea. Nobody does that. Now, when I've got friends and I want to be more experimental, and I'm abroad anyway, I collect teas. I drink all sorts of teas, tea leaves, tea bags, herbal teas, fruit teas, detox teas. I'm a tea fanatic, you see, so I have a whole collection of tea, you know, that can, there's lots of different kind of herbal tea as well, with different kind of flower. This is honeysuckle, this is the palm, and this is a ginseng flower. This is this new kind of jasmine tea. It looks like this. And for this kind of tea, you need a tall glass. Then you put it in a glass and you boil some water, then you fill the water in. Then slowly the tea will start opening up and the flower shoots up. It's very, very beautiful.
This is the type of tea you're using. You have to crush the ginger. put it in boiling water and leave it boil for a while, and then add some milk and tail it. You have to learn how to make tea. It's one of the responsibilities as you're growing. So my mother had to teach me how to make tea.
The way we're preparing this tea now, it's how in Tanzania, where we're from, it's how they prepare tea. When the British came to Africa during the colonization, they brought with them many Indians as well to help build the railroads. And whilst they were there, the Indians integrated a lot with the Africans, and they taught the Africans many new things.
I guess people in India never run out of tea leaves. Anytime you come night, people will still offer you tea. Because although we are from different parts, we still have a common, we drink tea. So that's the main common thing across India. This is tea masala. So you're making masala tea. If you want it stronger, I can put a little bit more. The tea I'm making now is called non-life tea. This is the tea that I normally drink for the winter. It's supposed to sort of stimulate the qi and cleanse the kidney and the blood. I came from, like in southwest of China, that tea drinking is part of the norm there. It's very popular. During the Cultural Revolution, tea was quite difficult to get. And one of my great uncle had some quite low-grade tea, but he had to sort of, make it overnight. Let it stay, then it became really strong. That's only for him. He wouldn't let us drink it. So in the evening, I would sort of slip into his kitchen and steal some of that tea, and I would drink it with a great joy because it was forbidden,
The water is already boiled, and they will add some milk.
Ingredients go water first, and then after the ginger, then you put the milk. So if you put the milk first, it doesn't quite come together.
And the milk will go bad.
The milk goes sort of sour.
You put everything.
But put it all together. Ours is different. When after boiling, we put the tea leaves.
When I first came 15 years ago, I did bring tea leaves with me, not knowing what to expect. I used to drink about 3, 4, 5 cups of tea. But now it's like 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. That's it. But they do feel offended when you go back home. So we explain to them we don't drink that much tea.
And then by slurping that, like badly slurped soup, I'm getting all the flavours of that tea. So I'm getting the tea sprayed all the way across my tongue. And in the process of doing that, I'm getting all the different nuances of flavour. It's getting plenty of oxygen in my mouth, and the oxygen actually helps with the tasting process. I never used to like tea at all. Now, I saw an advert in the paper for a trainee tea taster. And so at that point, I thought, okay, I'll go for that purely because I didn't like tea. The further into the process I got, the more I realised I was actually a very good job. I then began tasting 500 cups a day. And it was at that point that I really found the true love of a cup of tea.
Tea solves all the problems. If I have a problem, my daughter will straight away make me a cup of tea. And I will do that for her as well. When she's upset or stressed. It's wonderful. It's really great medicine, I think, and with both side effects.
What would you normally do while you're waiting for
We'll do some other things. There's so many other things to do. Do breakfast early morning while it's boiling.
Do homework
you normally make tea?
at home.
Yeah.
I think all of us, isn't it?
The mom will make tea, and then by the time the tea is boiled, she'll make breakfast.
It's always the moms.
Yeah.
Tea drinking was always a sociable experience. It's always happened in public place, and that culture has kept on all these years. It's become a tradition. You know, like friends always meet in tea house. You would spend like sometimes the whole afternoon just sit in the tea house drinking tea. Sometimes there's a storyteller. He would, you know, like telling stories there, and men like chatting to each other, and you know, some old people would carry a bird cage or something sat there. Yeah, it's a great place. It's like a theater.
Tea without the masala or tea without the ginger, it's like nobody, it's a must. You have to have one or the other. Nobody just drinks plain tea. To complement the teas, in Tanzania, we'd also offer the guests these side dishes. You have your chapati, and you have your samosa, and you have your mandazi.
When it's ready, this is masala tea. In this house, I will get masala tea. That house, I will get some other tea. No tea is sort of same.
This is for me.
Like if you drink a cup of tea in Mary's house, it'll be different. You drink a cup of tea in my house.
Yeah.
It'll be different. You drink in Ina's house, it'll be different. We still use the same tea, the same thing. Just different. It's nice. Reminds of India.
I think the whole experience of making tea, like this green tea, that when you open the tea, you know, like the tea jar, then you smell it, you know, it just kind of cleans up your head for you. And then I put in, fill the water in. The whole process is it's very calming as well as drinking the tea. And, you know, like, and once it's ready, I pour it. And, you know, like I drink like this. It all goes all the way, you know, like down into my body and my stomach. And it's very warming, and just, you know, like it leaves very clean taste in my mouth. It just feels, it clears my head and just makes me feel good, you know, about myself and life in general.
I don't really have this tea because I'm not really a fan of spices in tea. I'm a firm believer in that spices should be with food and not tea. So I guess Anna's more interesting than I am.
Everyone thinks their way is the best way, and whenever you go away from home, you are then trying to get a cup of tea, and it never tastes the same as you can make it at home. And that's what I find is absolutely fascinating, because you literally are at the stage where the tea becomes part of your way of life, part of your culture, and I love that. I love the fact that you can actually have that and really get your tea stuck into something which means so much to you. It's just a drink. That's all it is, but it evokes so many pleasures in you. That's why I love tea.
The most important effect of tea will be relaxing. I just sit back and have a cup of tea and have that break and space for myself. Just nobody wants anything from me or anything. I'm having my cup of tea.
I can get on with life later.
Okay. All right. So now we get a sense of all our consumers, right? There's no judgment. They're all our consumers. They're all our customers. So this is the question. Jose is going to put you in all your breakout rooms. So I'm just going to repeat the question again. So group one or team one, you are going to look into how you can better the experience of Graceness tea experience. For group two, you're going to look into the Patel family and see how you can improve on their tea experience. The third group, group three, you're going to go to Shunzhou's, you're going to go into her life and her mind and her habits and think, how can you better her experience? And group four, you're going to go into the Savai family and you're going to think how you can better their experience. And just to have you be reminded of some of the tools we talked about again, you want to discuss what is the job to be done. You want to really listen to the voice of the customer, right? And voice of the customer doesn't just mean what they tell you. It could be the things that you've observed. You would now uncover meaningful insights based on the 13 minutes that you had with them. And as a group, you're going to ideate, you're going to iterate, and there's no judgment because they're all your customers. Going to listen to all of them fairly.